I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order. Roll call, please, Terry.
Mayor Kodowski.
Here.
Jim Allen.
Present.
Allison Williams.
Present.
Kim Bukowski.
Here.
Mike Skippington.
Here.
Corey Campbell.
Here.
And Gary Paul.
Here.
Please stand for the pledge. And please remember our men and women stationed throughout the world. Okay, I need a motion on the agenda. I have no changes.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on the regular meeting minutes from February 6, 2018.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve those. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. If anybody would like to speak about anything not on the agenda, hearing none, we'll move on. Number 7, action items. Action regarding creating the B4 Commerce Zoning District and associated zoning ordinance amendments. Aaron.
The proposed B4 Commerce zoning district is intended to apply to the southwestern portion of the village, far southwestern portion of the village, kind of the Packerland grant portion of the village, consistent with the vision set forth in the village's comprehensive plan, as well as the master plan that was developed for this area, I believe it was last summer, that identified two distinct areas, primarily residential and also a mixed manufacturing business type zone along Packerland Drive, extending over to the east to a SBA southwest to northeast waterway that kind of drains through that area. In order to gather input on this concept, we did hold a neighborhood meeting last November. We invited all of the residents of the area, as well as we had held individual meetings with the large landowners in the area as well. The intent is to develop this B4 commerce area as, again, a residential friendly business zone that takes into account the concerns of the neighbors, which we heard at the neighborhood meeting, through extensive landscaping and strict design standards for the buildings within the area. And the proposed district captures those intents and is meant to facilitate new development in this area consistent with that vision.
Okay, any questions? Comments?
Who's the rep over there for Alderman? Are you Ken over there?
What's that now?
No,
It's,
Mike
Mike.
Wachowski.
I would say Mike Malczewski.
And I just want to find out if the neighbors in that area were satisfied with the what you came up. I want to make sure first.
Correct. We at the neighborhood meeting, we spoke with anyone who wanted to speak with us. We had a presentation. I believe Mike was at the meeting himself.
Okay.
So the neighbors are aware of this. We sent it not just the property that's to be rezoned eventually, but also to the expanding neighborhood around there.
Okay. All right.
Move to approve ordinance number 03-1-18.
Seconded.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve that ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 7B, action regarding rezoning parcels VA L194-2, VA L194-3, VA L194-4, VA L157, VA/L194-1, VA-L194, and VA L193, VA-L192, VA-L19, VA-L189, VA-L191, VA-L187, and portions of parcel VA-L190, VA-L188, and VA-L199 from B3 Community Business and R1 One Family Residence to B4 Commerce. Aaron.
This is the actual map amendment that would implement the new B4 Commerce zoning district. So what you see in that map is basically the area within the red hatched area would be rezoned to the B4 Commerce district that we just discussed. Currently, the area along Packerland and Grant is zoned B3 Commercial, and the area to the west of that drainage way is zoned R1 Single Family Residence. So the proposed rezoning would implement the comprehensive plan for this area as well as the master plan for this area.
Okay.
Will the developer have to construct the berms as recommended in the earlier ordinance all the way around that property?
It'll be only if it's adjacent to any kind of residential property.
Well, aren't parcels VA-L199 and 190 residential?
It'd be for any existing homes, not just, if it's zoned, it wouldn't address any kind of vacant zoned property. If it's to be, say to the northern part, Tasha Court area, we want to make sure that we're sensitive to those existing residences that are up there. So any businesses that would locate in that area would have to prepare those berm requirements as discussed in the ordinance.
I'm not necessarily opposed to this. I just think, it seems to me we don't have a lot of R1 residential areas in the village anymore, unfortunately, and we're giving up an awful lot here to transfer that from one family to B4 Commerce. And I guess I need some time to think about that, and around along Packerland, I can understand, I guess, why that would probably be a good fit, but boy, that's giving up an awful lot of that farmland. It seems to me that would be ideal for R1, but am I missing something?
This is what we had previously discussed with Village Board in terms of what our capacity is to have more residential subdivisions in terms of just manpower, labor, garbage trucks, that type of thing, that we can basically fill that from that line south, but not necessarily beyond that line. We would be at a tipping point in terms of trying to. What
line are you talking about?
It's following the center line of that waterway.
Okay.
So it's kind of a natural break.
Oh, south of that line would be okay.
Correct. And so we've previously discussed that really more in closed session about how to handle one side of the line versus the other side and which direction we would go. But really, that meets our capacity, assuming we filled out what was below the line with residential.
I remember that discussion, but I don't think we went into a great deal of depth at that point in terms of talking about this issue. Boy, we're going to have who would want to, and there probably are many people who in a B4 Commerce, someone who would fit that definition would want to go in that area that's red hatched there, behind the area that's on Packerland. I mean, what kind of businesses are we looking at there?
It's more about looking at large lot development in terms of there would, we've provided or gone through a study that had some roadway connections, potential service issues, and how that would happen, and really looking at a larger lot size, say 10 acres. So
for commerce, though.
Correct. More of the nicer elements of our current business park is really what we are shooting for.
Don't we have land north of this on Packerland that's already vacant and zoned commercial that we really haven't been able to develop for a long time, and now we're going to build more of it or zone more of it?
Well, this is privately owned. We do need more of it, that we're down to the village owns land on Packer land of about 18 acres or so, and
much?
that's been about 18 acres.
18?
And that's been set aside more so in terms of looking for that corporate headquarters type location. We have another 8.5 acres or so that's between Maine and Cypress. We have a lot of people have looked at it. We have not felt the uses have been very compatible with the existing multifamily residential up against it, and looking for something that doesn't net out a bunch of complaints to us, and being sensitive to that. So I think we could have sold it numerous times over if we were less, if we were more flexible on what we were looking for. But that it is currently being looked at for development and is.
Very roughly, I know you may not have this at your fingertips, but the red hatched area there, what are we talking about in terms of acreage? Roughly. 10, 50, 100?
Probably about 40 acre, 80, 90 acres. Yeah, 120 acres, somewhere
in that area?
somewhere
Okay.
around there.
All right, all right. So what you're saying then is that that area in particular, we would have difficulty serving it with municipal services? Is that one of the issues, or maybe a primary issue?
Yes.
More so from the aspect of garbage, recycling. We literally would be maxed out in our capacity of garbage trucks and running them out. You'd have to go buy another garbage truck for 4 hours of work or whatnot. You know, you would be out. And that's really the overall tipping point. And we have demand for that other type of nicer commercial development as well.
Oh, man, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think our schools need, of course, that would probably be in a West De Pere School District, isn't it?
Correct. That's West De Pere School District.
The fact that you have in here, the village has received a number of inquiries over this past 6 months for large parcels. If this is rezoned, is somebody ready to jump on this already?
They'd have to work out a deal with the property owners, since it is privately held.
The property, excuse me, Mike, the property that's a little darker green to the right of the lighter green, is that farmland,
That's the
I
golf
presume?
course.
It's golf course.
That's,
Well, that's the
Long
golf
Sandy
course.
Acres, that's Highland Ridge Golf Course.
Okay, all right, yeah. All right, so the light green is the farmland west of the golf course.
Correct.
All right, boy, I've hit many balls over there. Maybe I could retrieve some. Okay. I don't know. I just, man. I get your point, Allison and Aaron. I get your point, but man, it's given up a lot of R1 land. And we just don't have any more. And if we open that up, if we open up the blue hatch or purple hatch area, that's going to open up a nice chunk for this commercial development. I don't know.
The purple hatch is already purple
Right,
commercial.
right.
It's just a relatively obscure line. It was picked without looking at the terrain or the wetlands or any of that.
Which one was? The blue purple?
The purple hatch has no reference to the lay of the land in reality.
Okay.
So a big part of what we've done, so the village board at one point directed us to do a study of the area and how best to serve it. And so we have some of those options that have been available, but what you don't get from that picture is how many wetlands are sprinkled through there, and I think that would also present an obstacle from a residential standpoint in terms of trying to build roads and connect through and whatnot. It's not simple.
But that green, the lighter green to the right of the red line, that'll stay R1?
Yes.
Well, we're going to have to service that someday, perhaps, hopefully.
And we have the capacity to serve that with garbage and recycling. And we have the entire area already mapped out in terms of how we would serve it from a sewer water capacity side of things. This is really strictly a function of discussing use.
But aren't we going to have to service the red hatched area with those services anyway? Maybe not as much, for example, garbage pickup. Maybe you have 10 businesses in there as opposed to 100 homes. I understand the difference, but we're still going to have to service them with water and sewer.
Water and sewer are not the issue. It's garbage and recycling specifically. you would literally run out of capacity of our existing garbage trucks. So you'd have to go buy a $200,000 garbage truck and a recycling truck in order to go and pick up garbage if all of those are.
Yeah, but if those are developed in the residential lots, they're gonna pay taxes. I mean, it's gonna generate taxes. I mean, we can,
Not enough to cover that expense.
oh, we gotta raise taxes then.
Because you're literally, you need the extra piece of equipment and rededicating a person for a short amount of time. You have a huge capital equipment purchase
Yeah.
just because you can't fit it in within the
Okay, what's
existing
that,
40 hours
what's
a
that
week.
piece south of the, it's kind of a dark green, light green combination. What is that? That right on Grant Street there?
Those little teeth are actually in the town of Lawrence. Those are part of a previous boundary agreement between the village and.
That piece
I
south of
believe
that
he's
line?
asking about the part that's not Highland Ridge, south of Highland Ridge.
North of Grant Street and south of the golf course, there's a line there. And it's kind of an off green. It's not dark and it's not light. What zoning is that?
It's just camera.
I think
just the
that's just the
camera.
shade. I think that's still residential, isn't it?
Yes.
It's an
Yes,
existing,
that piece right there.
it's an existing residential use
Yeah.
and,
Right,
That's residential?
yes.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to know if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this.
Is there anybody out there that would like to talk about this issue?
Motion to open the floor for interested parties to speak.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the floor for anybody to speak. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is open. If you'd like to, anybody would like to talk, need you to come up and state your name and address, please.
Hi, I live on Kathy Van, and I live on Tasha Court. I'm
You live
just,
on what, ma'am?
Tasha Court,
Toxer?
Tasha.
That
Court.
little road that's there? Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're right down in the corner, right on the very end.
Okay.
I guess, I don't really have a problem with it, I don't think, as provided that you're going to keep us in mind with what type of businesses you're gonna allow in there. We don't want a recycling plant or anything like that, huge manufacturing, kind of keep it small if you can.
Right.
I guess my question would be, what do you plan on putting in between the creek and our line, our property line? There's just a real little creek that goes through there. I can
Okay.
No, it's right here. Can't be any.
right up there,
Yeah.
that little black line going through, right under there. That's just a small little creek. And I'm wondering, are you going to try to fit a business right between there, that they'd be right on top of us, or?
No.
Won't be anything there.
No, and you can keep in mind, the village is not intending to acquire any of the property, so it would really be based on private development, but there's restrictions within the ordinance to try and serve that as a buffer.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that was my understanding at the last November meeting, but then when I got this paper, an email from my neighbor, it sounded like it had changed, and sounded like it went up to the property line. So that's what I'm questioning about.
Yeah. No, it's the same as what was discussed in November, and that's why we want to do the rezoning, is so that we can create a district that will fit with what you have, you people that live out there, and any private development for residential that happens in the other part that's zoned R1. So,
Okay. And then a second thing is, are you thinking of any biking trails through there, or through down Packerland and Grant Street when you're doing all this then?
yeah, I think there's a plan out there.
They're currently updating our comprehensive, or our bike and ped plan, but it would provide for trails along Packerland. In all likelihood, it would be on the Hobart side of Packerland because the existing trail ends up farther north on that side. And then it would run down Grant Street, and in all likelihood, that would be on the Ashwaubenon side.
Okay, so you're saying the biking trail part of it will be on Hobart's? They're going to
In that
allow
particular case, we see that that would be a more likely extension just because the trail ends on that side and
Yeah.
a little easier to continuity-wise rather than people zigzagging across the street.
Right, okay.
Okay,
That's it.
thank you, Kathy. Anybody else that would like to talk? Come on up and state your name and address, please.
Urban Ambrosius, 3914 Packerland Drive. I got maybe a couple questions on, I got that VAL 187 up in the top corner. And when we had that meeting in, I believe it was November, at that time, that little piece between that ditch and the border up there, they talked about putting residential there in November. Now, there's no way how you're gonna get residential between that ditch and the, what do you call, there ain't enough room to put residential buildings in there, plus a road to get to the back end of that.
I'll let Aaron address that.
I remember speaking with you at the meeting, and that was a concern that you raised, that, you know, you won't be able to get a house in there, so it wouldn't be appropriate for residential, but appropriately designed business with the berming requirements and everything else, with the evergreen requirements, may work. And I remember we discussed that, and that's why it's reflected in there the way it is right now.
Well, what do you suggest to do with that little piece between there? What can be done with that?
Maybe a small type of, some sort of retail use. It's a tough piece of property to work with because of that creek that flows through there and the existing property lines, even as it stands right now with its B3 zoning.
But there's not enough room to put anything in there, plus a road to get to the back part of that.
And I guess part of the problem is that that's the way the land stands right now as far as the parcel and the creek.
I understand.
Yeah.
You just can't leave it later.
So if it's about 170 feet wide, is what Todd just mentioned to me, you could find some sort of small use to put in there to front on Packerland. So there's some ability to put something in there. It takes some creativity, though.
Yeah, up in the front part, but what can be done with that toward the back end of that? See, that's the problem. It's not up in the road front part, it's in the back, and you can't get a road back there the way it lays there.
Because it could be developed with the rest of the property. It just depends on what would happen on that side. You know, there's the option to potentially do a crossing, or depends on how it works. You know, it's not any simpler as a residential property either, because say you did like a private road, the amount of that extension of sewer and water to get that far back into the property is going to be somewhat cost prohibitive, because you would only be able to have lots on one side of that. You're gonna, it's a problem regardless of use. I mean, I think if somebody came to you and had an interest in residential, it's certainly not something we would object to looking at a rezoning or trying to facilitate, but I think regardless of that use, it's complicated. And right now you have two different zonings on that property, which further complicates it.
Well, what about then the what you call now it is that whole lighter part, not the residential part, the where the lighter hash is there. Pardon? No, right there, that hash, but the lighter hash, not the long Packerland Drive behind there. Is that going to be going as a different kind of a business than with the darker stuff along Packerland?
Nope, that would all be the same zoning district, the new B4 Commerce zoning district. So you would no longer have a split zoning, which, as Allison mentioned, further complicates that property. It would have one zoning district on it.
Okay.
That's just reflecting the fact that part of your property now is the underlying yellow, that's residential. The purple side is the existing zoning of commercial. And what we're proposing is really the red hatch is the entire area changing over to a new business district that we're proposed.
Thank you, Irv. Anybody else like to speak on this subject?
Move to return to regular order of business.
Second it.
We have a motion and a second to return to the regular order of business. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Just a question, what is south of that, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Tasha? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yep.
Tasha Court, what's between Tasha Court and the red line? Are those residential
It's residential.
homes in there? Between the cul-de-sac and the red line, what, is that
Yes, those are homes.
homes in there? Okay. Well, just so people know, but that, everybody calls it a creek. I'm not sure what a creek is versus a creek, but whatever it is, we have problems, the village has problems when there's water like that. And right here, next door, you have a puddle and the government says, oh, that's a wetlands, and you run into all sorts of problems. And so a lot of times that little creek or whatever it is, that may eventually pose whoever develops it in there some kind of problem depending on what the government decides is wetland. So we're running into that all the time. It's nobody's fault. It's just the way the state and federal government defines wetlands. We had a struggle right across here in the corner where they're building 3 new buildings. It seems to us foolish sometimes, but that's what they define as wetlands. So things get difficult, and the water is a big part of that.
I'd like to make a motion to approve to recommend to the village board approval of these zoning parcels.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Well, before the vote, I'm going to vote in favor, but between now and the village board meeting, I really want to take a closer look at this and discuss it with Aaron and Allison. So the yes vote tonight is to move it along to the village board, so I will vote yes on it tonight.
Thank you very much.
With a reservation.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend approval of these rezoning for these parcels. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'm sorry? No. C, action regarding rezoning parcels VA 55-B, VA 66-4-6-D, VA 66-4-6-C, VA 66-4-6, VA 66-4-6A, VA 66-4-6B, VA 66-4-4, VA 66-4-5, VA 66-4-2, VA 66-4-2B, VA 66-4-2A, VA 66-4-1, VA 66-4-1-A, VA 56-4-2, VA 56-4, VA 56-5, VA 56-6, VA 56-2, VA 56-7, VA 66-8-1, VA 66-8-3, VA 66-9, VA 66-8-A, VA 66-8-B, VA 66-8-4, VA 66-B-3, VA 66-A-1, VA 66-B-1, VA 66-B, and VA 66-A-2 from L1 light industry to sports and entertainment. Aaron.
The proposed rezoning here, again, is the village-initiated rezoning, consistent with the village's comprehensive plan and TID number 5 master plan that continues the transition of this area from light industry to sports entertainment district. We did hold a neighborhood meeting February 13th with the property owners in this area, including the residential area to the south. We had a number of people show up, had a good discussion. The Mike McCarthy Way area is experiencing a lot of interest from developers for redevelopment, not necessarily for light industry, but for uses that are more consistent with the sports entertainment district. Hotels, restaurants, things of that nature. So the proposed rezoning is meant to help facilitate the redevelopment of this area and help bolster our efforts towards the sports and entertainment district, consistent with the north side of Mike McCarthy Way, as you can see up there, the light green, the previously rezoned property for the Comfort Suites on the south side of Mike McCarthy, and then also the sports entertainment on the west side of Holmgren Way.
So the part that, just to be clear on this, the part that is being requested to be rezoned is the purple hatched area, right?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And you want to leave those 3 brown ones, which are 2-family residential on the east end of Borvan. You want to leave those out of this because they're duplexes or?
Correct. They're existing residences that certainly fit as a buffer from the residential neighborhood to the south.
Okay, thank you.
So all of the businesses that are in the purple hatched areas, they're okay now, but they would not be allowed to be changed to similar type business. If they burnt down, they're done. They have to go to sports. Okay.
Right. There will be a number of non-conforming uses within there, but I think the business owners I've spoken with in that area are all interested in redeveloping for the right price.
Yeah. Okay.
Always.
Just to clarify, for television purposes, it's not if it would burn down. It would have to be that the use
I'm being
ceases. There is an
sarcastic.
exception
You-
for natural
if it-
disasters, but people are
If it
sensitive
fell
about
over,
their
it can't be
businesses going
redone.
away.
Okay.
Yeah, when
We
we had
knew
the
that.
neighborhood meeting for this rezoning, the people who own those businesses were all pretty okay with it. You know, this has been something, the sports and entertainment district, it's been something that's been coming for a number of years. It's part of our comprehensive plan, and so.
Move to approve, Rod, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Motion to
Same
open the
que-
floor, motion to open
Same
the floor
thing with
for
anyone on the
interested
floor that wants to speak.
parties to speak.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is open. If you'd like to come up and state your name and address, please.
Kevin Wilson, 2400 Riverside Drive. I actually have a huge problem with this because we were supposed to be on the agenda for a conditional use permit in this area, and I was not even told that this was up for rezoning tonight. And I personally know quite a few of the people that own properties, and I have spoke with them, and they are opposed to that. Nobody even knows this is on the agenda for tonight.
Well, we had a neighborhood meeting on this, and I
I
believe.
mean, U.S. Special, Kenworth are both in that location, and they both are not aware of this.
The gentleman from Kenworth was at our meeting, that we were having the rezoning meeting.
I mean, I'm on the agenda for tonight to get
Correct.
conditional use, and I wasn't even told that this was on the agenda against it. And on the website, the publications we have for the property that I purchased, it is permitted use. Your website shows that it is I-1, and I've been informed now that that's a typo. But this is a huge problem.
Well, okay, first of all, we didn't.
Todd can speak to that. He knows
Right.
that that's a typo on the website of the village.
That's a different agenda item, though, so we didn't deny your conditional use.
But I wasn't even told that this was even on the agenda for tonight. Don't you see that that's a big problem? I'm trying to get a conditional use permit, and nobody's even said, oh, by the way, before we get to yours, we're going to have a vote on trying to change this before we even get to your conditional use permit. That's a huge problem in my eyes. A huge problem.
You have the floor now, go ahead and say what you want to
But I mean,
say.
that's kind of trying to pull the wool over my eyes.
Nobody's pulling wool over
No.
anybody's eyes, sir. You have the floor. You want to say something about your property, go ahead and say it. That's why we
Well,
open the
why
floor.
wouldn't I have been told that you're going to try to do this before we even get this done?
What do you have to say
All
about it, sir?
property owners were mailed a letter
Yes.
indicating when the public meeting, separate public informational meeting was, and then when this
When was it
meeting is,
mailed?
and then it would have been at least 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
I'm going to repeat myself. Sir, you have the floor. If you have something to say that you don't like about this proposed resort, please say it. You're free to say it. Go ahead,
Well,
say
first
it.
of all, I'm trying to clear the air that this wasn't even told to me, so.
You've said that several times, but what is your point? Why don't you like this rezoning? Could you tell us that?
Because the businesses that are in here cannot operate with this rezoning.
Yet, sir, they can?
No, the business that I have, I could not operate with this rezoning.
Because you're asking for a conditional use permit, but the businesses that are operating within this rezoning area, they will still be allowed to operate even though if we vote to rezone it.
So then how does that fit in with my conditional use permit that we were supposed to be talking about today?
Aaron?
The conditional use permit is still on the agenda, and is going to be considered by the Planning Commission and the Village Board under the current zoning.
Correct.
And just for clarification regarding the letters for the neighborhood meeting were mailed out probably about 2 weeks ahead of the neighborhood meeting, which was held on February 13th. Each property owner did receive a copy of the letter, and then also a follow-up letter regarding the Planning Commission meeting, the public hearing, and the Village Board meeting for the rezoning was sent out separately about 2 weeks ago. So there have been 2 notifications to the property owners within the area.
So then I would have, you have my address and I would have got a letter on that?
Are you the owner of record?
It was a land contract purchase, yes.
Is that recorded?
Yes.
The property owner of that shows up as, I believe it's Mr. Michaud, who we had met with in our office 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Correct.
And Mr. Michaud has not relayed that information onto you?
No, he is not aware of this at all. In fact, I know he would have been here. He's coming back from a vacation, but couldn't make it tonight.
But I guess, Kevin, just for the record, we did discuss this during our meeting.
You didn't say this was going to be on the agenda at all. We did not discuss that at all.
Who's we?
Brian, the original landowner, myself, and Todd and Aaron.
Well, he just said that they talked to him, but the
Not about
owner.
this. No, we did not discuss that. We were talking about the conditional use permit. That's what we discussed. So he's not aware of this at all.
He should have got, if he is the landowner that we have the record of, he should have gotten the notice.
So right now, that on the website, that land was permitted it says I-1.
Doesn't matter. It does not matter. A typo, that's too bad, but that happened, yes.
Well, that's a
That
big
doesn't
typo.
change the zoning, sir.
But that's on your website. That's what the
doesn't
information
change
that
the
you
zoning.
are giving to the
It
public.
doesn't change the zoning.
So how are you supposed to, if your website shows that, how are you going to get that
It doesn't change
information?
the zoning. A
So-
typo on a website does not change the zoning.
Well, I am definitely opposed to this, and so are all the other landowners there. You say, for a price, yeah, if somebody's going to come give them money, but you still are operating a commercial business in a transportation area. It's located right off of Ashland, that's why all the transportation companies are there.
Okay, now you're making your point. That's why you're here. You're making your point. You object to it for the reasons you just stated. That's why the floor is open.
Yeah, and that was what I wanted to talk about. When you get thrown off with this ahead of time, it obviously changes things. But especially where the land on both sides of, obviously where Kenworth is, where US Special, where we're looking at, it's all transportation. There's transportation on both sides of the road. And for my business, we need to be located on a good 4-lane road without roundabouts. We carry extreme lengthy vehicles. We're a towing company. Roundabouts are good in some aspects, but they're very hazardous for towing conditions because we're towing different types of vehicles all the time. So this is a great location for us because we have easy access on and off of 172.
And that will be discussed in a later agenda item when you're asking for your conditional use permit.
Well, it does have some bearing. I mean, I would say from a perspective of someone who has a business there, it does have some bearing because it's kind of, I mean, he probably should have been told that this was coming up prior to his conditional use permit. It isn't first. This is first, and his conditional permit's after. So that is a little bit, you know, for a person who's coming here, I don't know. I guess I would have, you know, preferred there would be better communication in that regard, you know?
Well, but if his landowner did not notify him,
Yeah.
and we only have the landowner.
But they were in a meeting just how many weeks ago?
I mean, we were in contact, Todd and I were in contact for 3 weeks here, on and off. I've never once been told about this.
I think there's obviously some miscommunication, but staff did meet with him and Mr. Michaud actually the day of the public informational meeting, and an invitation was extended. And staff believes that Mr. Michaud acknowledged receiving the letter and had indicated that he would be present at that meeting. He was not present at the meeting, and we noticed he was not there, but neither of them attended, but they were both. Mr. Michaud was delivered a letter, and they were told that same day that there was an informational meeting regarding exactly this. It doesn't necessarily matter in terms of the conditional use permit, because it's received when the current zoning is in place. It has to be treated as such. So even if you were to rezone this, you could still take up the conditional use permit and decide whether, on its own separate merits, whether that would continue. If it was granted, it would become a legal non-conforming use.
Okay.
But it would, you separately can consider that agenda item.
May I ask how many businesses are operating right now that would not be permitted use when this goes into effect? How many?
The majority.
Well, they're all permitted now. They're grandfathered in, even with the rezoning.
Correct.
But what I've been told is, because we talked about this, they said, this may be something we look at in the future. Nobody once told me this was on the agenda. And so we discussed all this, and they said, well, what happens if it gets rezoned, like you're asking right here? And they said, well, you wouldn't be able to add on. The existing businesses that are there would not be able to add on. You could continue to operate, but you can't expand your business because it doesn't fit the new zoning.
I would just want to look through the crystal ball, okay? Everything goes fine, and you end up there. Everybody else has already got a number for how much they're going to sell that property for, and they're gone. And all your clients just left.
We have clients all the way around, and not just right here, but on the other side of Ashland too. So I mean, Georgia Pacific, tons of clients. But I mean, you can say, yeah, everybody has a number. I mean, we all do for everything, but that doesn't mean you're going to go get that number. I mean, you know, the Peterbilt might have a number of $10 million. Somebody's going to come in and give them 10. Well, that has to happen. I mean, that's what if. That doesn't mean that that's going to happen. I mean, I got a number for everything I own that I would sell. That doesn't mean somebody's going to give me that number.
All right, I think I don't appreciate, 3 times you said that all these owners over here are opposed to it. That's not true. That's not our experience after the meetings and the public hearings. And I don't appreciate you making that statement, because it's simply not true.
Well, I did speak to them. I'm not
true.
saying that I'm saying that without speaking to them. I did go out and talk to them.
You said 3 times the majority of those people in that area are opposed to this. That's not true, sir, according to our experience, and I don't appreciate that. That staff has worked hard to notify these people.
Well, I'm saying I did.
I know that's a different story. That's not what you said. That's not what you said. Now you're changing your story.
Not me. I said I've spoke to the owners.
I don't want to argue anymore.
When we had the informational meeting, the public informational meeting, we had a lot of those property owners there, and we talked about the reconstruction of Mike McCarthy Way. And the owners that were there, which was a majority of them, and I'm sure that staff has all their names, they were not opposed to the rezoning issues. And that's probably why there's not a large majority of them here tonight objecting to it. Now, if we do the rezoning, which is in our comprehensive plan, if we do the rezoning, if you get the conditional use permit, which is 1 or 2 items down the list here, you would still be able to operate at that building. It doesn't change anything. So the only thing that's going to change is the zoning going forward, it's not what it is today. You would become legal, non-conforming. So,
If the conditional use permit is granted.
if the conditional use permit is granted.
It reminds me a little bit of, I'm having a little deja vu, because in Green Bay, they went through the same thing with the light industrial area right that bordered, if y'all remember. And they had a trucking company there, and they had the same exact thing. It took them a while to redo it, to change it to light industrial. And for a while, they had part of it that was light industrial and part of it that wasn't. I know, because I put up monuments there, so I know. But I think for a while, it did not develop, it really did not develop. And I think it was to everyone's surprise that it didn't, because they, all the streets were renamed, everything was ready to go, all the property values went up, blah, 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 Everybody thought it was going to rush over there. Well, still developing. So in that regard, I don't know that it will be that, maybe it may not be problematic in that regard. But I can definitely, sympathize with you going through this right now. And hopefully we can take that into account when we look at his permit. But, just so from that perspective, I have seen it transition differently in another community where it didn't, it didn't all of a sudden, you're right, exactly what you said. Not everybody's going to rush and give you that either, right? So in that regard, but I do think, we should give some consideration when this comes up because, obviously there was some kind of miscommunication at some point here, so.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, anybody else like to speak for or against this? State your name and address, please, for the record.
John Heyerman, 1777 Rainbow. I guess I would be against it. I guess my question is, why do we have to change the zoning now? And when you say business owners, how much of this land is empty?
Is what?
Or is empty?
How much of this land is what, did you say? Darren?
Empty. No, there's no businesses on them.
Oh, okay.
I know in my area, Gary's there, I'm there, but everything Dan has is he's ready to sell. For us, the people that are actually working in that area with our businesses, I don't want it changed because it means I can't change anything in my business. If I buy the building next to me, I can't add it onto my building.
Just as a point of clarification, printing and publishing is a permitted use within the sports entertainment district.
So that means I could buy the building to the north of me, tear it
Yes.
down and add it onto mine?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, then I'm all for this.
Yeah, it is. We did a zoning matrix that we did, we redid and did the zoning matrix, and because it's part of the village center, really, it's part of that whole transitional area.
Okay.
That was one of the permitted uses.
Right,
Oh, it is. See, I
Yes.
thought light industrial is what I am.
no.
No.
It's in the sports and entertainment
Okay.
zoning.
I do have a question though, is why do you have to do it so far in advance?
This is what I found out with developers, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong. If somebody's going to come in and spend the amount of money to buy some of these properties, to put a large development on, they don't want to have something that's going to be there for the next 50 years. They're not going to invest $8 to $15 million and be next to,
Light industrial use.
a light industrial use. Let's say somebody who rips apart, I don't even know, semis and starts them up at 2 in the morning.
Yep.
And
Well, I know what you're saying. I mean, we were looking.
a race car, my husband used to have a race car in one of those shops over there, stuff like that. You don't want that when you're going to spend $15 million to develop land.
We're also faced with the issue like we did with truck equipment as to why the village purchased it. The businesses want to reinvest and have needs to do it, but if they reinvest in their current uses, like truck equipment was going to, it was not a compatible use with that district. The likelihood of being able to change it over into sports and entertainment is further complicated by the reinvestment in those businesses.
I understand, but I think what's happening, I know in our area, is everyone has such a high price on their land. There's nobody who could go in there and put in a business, other than if it's a hotel, and I don't know how they make all their money.
Yeah, good
But
question.
Your big problem is the land is such an inflated value.
Yeah.
Put it this way, I just spent about $1 million on my building, and it won't even appraise at that amount because of it's blighted, because there's nothing for sale in this area, and because the irrational values that everyone's attaching to their properties. And I can't even get a reasonable value for my property
Right,
because of what's happening in this area.
right.
I don't know what that has to do with anything. I'm just saying it's a big issue,
It-
because
it
everyone
is.
wants to sell for $1 million.
Right.
Yep.
But is it going to happen? I know when we were talking about buying Dan's land, we were looking at putting apartments and everything in there, but how can you do it? Across the street is a bunch of garbage, and it could be that way for 20 years.
Right. And that's why, to get the rezoning going, and at least people who want to invest in that area know that what's coming it will change it,
Okay.
so,
Well, and you're saying my business is actually acceptable,
correct.
Yeah.
so,
Can you answer a question? Have you been approached to sell that
no,
property? No?
no.
Okay.
And all of us, Dan, my uncle, myself, actually for the past 15 years, we've all said and even when the plumber was there, we all said we were going to stay together, and negotiate as a team versus letting somebody pick someone off or be the last guy holding out. But no one has ever approached us.
It's supply and demand too, John. If people want too much money for their land, it's not going to sell, and that's the way it is. And it
Well,
sits.
I know. I've been trying to buy Dan's land for 15 years.
And we've had some property not too far from here that's been vacant for many, many years, and the prices, it's in a commercial area, price is way too high, at least we think so, and so do most people who are looking at it. So it just sits there.
Yeah,
And if that's what the owner wants to do and pay the nut on it every year, well, there's not much we can do about it.
yeah, no. Well, I see it, to me, it's hurting the redevelopment.
Yeah, exactly, yes.
because-
That's the whole purpose of this, is
Right.
redevelopment. It's an older area of the community, and we're working at, we've got the 800-pound gorilla on Lombardi Avenue, and they're generating, people want to be around that stadium, and they want the activity, and that's generating a lot of what's going on here. And you're going to see now Green Bay is going to be doing something along Lombardi. We don't know what they're going to be doing yet, but, it's just generating all kinds of interest, but if the property prices are too high, it's not going to sell.
Yeah,
So,
okay. Well,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
John. Okay, anybody else like to say anything on this issue?
Move to close the floor.
second.
We have a motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, if there's no other questions on this project, then move forward, or move to approve the change in rezoning in this particular area that we're talking about and discussing.
I don't see an ordinance here, though, in the agenda.
Pardon?
I don't see an ordinance. Is there an ordinance here?
No, rezoning.
I didn't see one.
The ordinance will come to village board.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
We ran into a time crunch in preparing
Oh,
it.
okay, so we're recommending approval of this to the village board. Oh,
Correct.
okay.
Second.
Is that your motion, Gary?
Yes.
I'll second it.
I already seconded it.
Oh, okay, thank you. Appreciate that, sir.
We have a motion and a second to recommend approval of the rezoning in item 7C. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, item 7D, action on a request by Jay Dressen, agent for JESK Investments LLC, for an extension of the conditional use permit to construct a self-storage development located at 700 block of Baton Road and 707 and 709 Baton Road.
As you may recall, this has been before us on, I think, 2 other occasions. Actually, back in, I think it was late 2015, it came through, was actually tabled at the village board, brought back, and was approved, I think, in March of 2016. During that time frame, or shortly after, I should say, Mr. Dressen did acquire some additional property. Then it actually came through for reconsideration. It actually expanded and was approved in March of 17. He has been working diligently on trying to get some stuff done there. He has actually approached the village in regards to a joint stormwater. I'd like to make sure that everybody knows that that needs to be kept as a separate discussion portion. What we're looking at today is actually the extension of the conditional use permit. What he's looking for now is actually he'd be starting in May with earthwork. June and July would be the construction. The permit actually expires March 28th of this year, so end of this month. So what he's asking for is a 6-month extension. By ordinance, once you're above the foundation, then it is, a substantial construction is considered. So if he can get the foundation in and then be going by June and July, he would fall within the 6-month extension. Then the conditional use would be applicable.
All right, Todd, if he gets the foundation in by then, how long does he have to complete the project? You know, we just had a gentleman walk out of here, and as far as I'm concerned, his project isn't completed. That's 2 years old.
The actual permit itself would be valid for 1 year.
For 1 year?
The construction of the, yes, the conditional use then would actually be, once it's under substantial construction, the conditional use stays with the property. So if he does one building, then he's considered in compliance with the conditional use. However, when he starts the building, then he has 1 year to complete that construction, because the permit's only valid for 1 year.
Okay. All right, we've had this in here a few times already, but the way you explained it, Todd, I'll move to grant him the 6-month extension, but we better see some action on it now.
Second?
Yeah, I'm going to vote no on this. I took a ride by there again, and I just don't think this is a place for that development, so I'm going to vote no.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to grant a 6-month extension on the conditional use permit for J. Dressen. Before I take the vote, Todd, I have a question. With that conditional use permit, you said that he has a year. Can you put another condition, any other conditions on it, that it has to be done by like September? That he doesn't, you know, like, I don't know.
You don't want to come back in 6 months from now and
Right,
saying,
and saying, I mean, this is the 3rd time, you know.
Mr. Dressen is in attendance. If he can probably address that better than I can.
Motion to open the floor for interested parties.
Motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? State your name and address, please, Jay.
Jay Dressen, 4008 Garrett Street in De Pere. Yeah, this has been ongoing for some time. Like Todd said, I acquired one piece of property, came in for the conditional use, then acquired another piece of property that came up for sale next to it. In the meantime, all along, this, myself and Mr. Burr have talked about a stormwater pond in the back, on the back parcel. We've been in negotiations, haven't really come up with, the price has been the issue for the most part. And my understanding is that I had to have all of that completed before, you know, with my survey, and I had to have the pond and everything in before I could start construction. In that negotiation, I found out through Mr. Burr and Mr. Gerbers that I could start my construction, and if the village did not purchase that property, I could still start and then build my pond, and then before I could get my permit, occupancy permit. So that's kind of been what's been holding it up. There are some mutual advantages for that to happen. If it does not happen, I'm still going to move forward. I do have I have my contractors all set. I'm waiting for state approved plans to start. So I'm ready to move forward. There was some confusion on my part as when I could actually start. I thought I had to have everything in place before I could start, and I am a little nervous. I don't like to throw hundreds of thousands of dollars at a project that I don't know what, you know, how it's going to end up. And again, Mr. Burr has identified that this is a good location for a stormwater pond. So that's kind of what's been holding it up. I do appreciate your... The
stormwater pond is going to be on your property and your stormwater pond?
I've paid for all of this surveying to have a stormwater pond for my project.
Your property? For
my project, correct. And in the negotiations, if the stormwater pond was to be built for the village would buy the back parcel, the back acre of my project, put in the pond, and then I could use that pond as part of my project. So that's kind of where we're at.
All right, you made the comment about you have your contractors ready to go.
Yes.
How can you do that when everybody's so busy?
I have bids and
They guaranteed you startup time?
yeah, I have my excavators. Actually, my excavator, before all of this, he was gonna start this month. But I said, you might as well hold off until I really know what's going on. I don't wanna, you know, I'm right at the point where if I put in more money, I need to finish. Right now, I just have the property and some lead work and the surveying and that type of thing done, so.
All right.
Can you explain the sentence, the purchase price has been the issue, and I have been reducing my price? What do you mean?
Well.
Who's buying from who?
I own the property now in a sole proprietorship.
Okay, so we're trying to buy it from you.
Right, and it's been kind of going back and forth. This started when I first brought in 2015, you know, after the meeting, Steve, you know, approached me and said, hey, if you're ever looking at selling, let us know. And then I went and pursued my endeavor, and then we've just been talking back and forth. And I know there's been some ponds put in and throughout the village, so you know, so I knew what, you know, we both kind of know. It kind of goes back to what the gentleman said before. If somebody's willing to pay for it, and we're going back and forth, and we're trying to determine that. But I thought that I had to have all of this done before I could break ground, basically.
My question is, I guess, is if we grant him a conditional use, can we say in that conditional use that he has to be done by September?
I'm okay with that.
I don't believe we can, because the conditional use has already been approved. It's just a matter of, what's before us tonight and going to the village board would be an extension of that same conditional use. I think if you want to put an additional condition on it, we'd have to bring it through probably another public hearing process. So I don't think we'll be able to put the extension that's requested tonight, the 6-month extension, would be September 28th, would be the expiration.
And if it's not done, then.
So yeah, he'd have to have substantial construction by that time frame, or the conditional use then.
Okay, substantial construction, is that like more than one building?
I don't believe so, because it's listed in the ordinance as above the foundation. So substantial construction would be the earthwork, the foundation, and then starting construction above. It doesn't specify if it's a certain percentage of the development. It just says that it's substantial construction. So one building would be classified as substantial construction, because the use then is there with even one building.
Okay.
Are the pictures in here, are they what do you plan on having this look like with the
No, these are pictures that were part of the conditional use.
Oh, okay.
Site plan did approve them. There were some conditions to the approval.
Okay.
It does have 100% masonry on the front.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I just point out too, if it does go through, I know it's a different issue because tonight was just the extension of it. If for some reason the village were to work something out separately from this conditional use, the site then would change, so there'd be less units there. The back units would be gone, of course, to accommodate a larger pond. So we would have buildings along the front. So the site will change a little bit, and that might have to come back through a site plan if that were to happen. But tonight is just for the extension of the conditional use based on Mr. Dressen's application.
What is the repercussions if the village does not enter into a purchase agreement to create the pond? What happens if that never happens?
Then Mr. Dressen would actually continue on with his development, which he'd have his own stormwater pond. The village would look at alternatives elsewhere.
He'd have to build his own pond?
He'd have to build his own pond, which is part of the approved plans right now.
Okay.
So you're trying to split the cost, so to speak?
Yes and no. I mean, there's benefits to both. If we work something out with the village, then I avoid the cost of the pond, and I don't have the investment in 2 buildings. It reduces my investment, but it does take 2 buildings away from me.
Those 2 buildings that are
This is the property line.
okay.
So there's already an easement here for the stormwater going into Ashwaubenon Creek.
Okay.
And then if the village would purchase this, we just need to get an easement to that.
You'd lose those 2 buildings?
I would lose these 2 buildings. But I would avoid the cost of a pond.
Okay, and what if we can't come to an agreement and you have to build your own pond? Then what?
I build a
But then you'd be able to keep those two buildings?
Correct.
I see, okay.
Yep.
Now, what happens, Todd, if this gentleman who's got some investment already, if he does what he just described, and we can't reach an agreement with him, and he builds his own pond, and he builds those two buildings that go this way, then we reach an then the village builds a stormwater pond. What's that gonna do to this whole thing? Is that?
We wouldn't build a stormwater pond on that.
Yeah, it's an identified parcel that would, or area that would be good for a stormwater retention pond by the village.
We would
So
have to
that's kind of
find an
where it
alternate
started
one.
with
But
Mr.
in that
Burke.
we build an alternate one, but in that area, right?
Not on that property, but somewhere else.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and it's not, it's like I said, it's just been one area that's been identified. There are other areas in the village that they're looking.
Yep, okay, thank you.
And someone has looked at the cost of the land of the other retention pond versus the cost of this land for the retention pond, and it's...
I'm not sure from an engineering perspective where the engineering department is in the construction of a pond in that area, so I'm not sure if they've been looking at other land, but they have identified the general region needs a stormwater pond of some sort. So I don't know if they've really been that far into it yet.
Yeah, and that's one thing and again, when Steve approached me initially when I bought I bought this parcel first, he just said that it's, that might be a good place, and then I kind of watched and looked where they had purchased, or the village had purchased other property, and and I really wasn't even looking at selling, because this is going to generate income.
It's gonna go, I'm sorry.
It's going to generate income if I lose this.
Yeah,
But
sure. Sure.
But then I avoid some cost, and I don't build these. And
Would your entranceway into those two be still be off of Baton?
It'd be right up here, sir.
So they would come in there and get to those bottom two buildings?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Correct.
Todd, does this go to the board?
This will need, actually, the 6-month extension will have to be approved by village board.
It has to go to the board.
Per the ordinance, correct.
All right. Okay.
Can you make a statement of, I don't want to know what was you're selling and buying, just the difference. What's the difference between the two numbers?
The property, I bought it for 88.
I didn't, just want the difference.
Oh, the difference? It's gone anywhere from, 80,000 to lower. I mean, it's
The difference between the selling, the
approximately,
selling and
yeah. I
buying,
mean,
80 grand.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, and like my communication with Steve, he knows what I paid for it, and I know, that's kind of where we're at. Everybody has their selling point, and again, at the beginning, I was not interested in selling.
It's not 10 grand.
No.
We also,
But we're close.
the village has 3 stormwater ponds that we are doing this spring,
Right.
so.
So, and that's another holding, he's already got monies appropriated for this year, and he's not urgent looking at this, and I know you've got a lot of other things going on in the village.
Yeah. So,
All right. Mary,
okay.
Thank you.
Did you say we are building 3 ponds?
We are building 3 different ponds. We're making the one on Ashland bigger, we're doing one on Coronas, and one on Packerland, maybe? By that area, yeah. There's 3 of them.
On Ashland, the one that was just built, we're going to enlarge?
Yep, we're gonna make it bigger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right, very good.
okay.
So, you need a motion to close
Close.
the floor.
Yep.
Move to close the floor.
What's that now?
Move to close the floor.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is closed. Okay. There's a motion and a second to extend this conditional use permit for 6 months.
Well, after your explanation, I'll vote yes on the motion, but I just so you're aware that that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to vote yes when it comes to the village board. I want to look at this some more. I get a look at this. This is an interesting development here. And you've made some investments, so good for you.
Okay.
So second,
We already have a motion and a
okay.
second. to extend the conditional use permit for 6 months. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Comment. Across the creek, a little bit to the west, we already have storage units there, don't we? Doesn't Geisler have some right up the street?
Yeah,
It's just on the other side of the creek, Ken.
yeah.
So we already have storage units that border that creek.
Correct.
Or Creek.
No, I'm not.
No,
I'm
no.
just making reference to storage units
Yeah.
in that area.
Sure, but use the mic, please.
That is very true, but also, we were talking about Quick Trip and BP on the, you are correct. I mean, that's, but also it's been, approved and we've looked at it several times, and I understand they're not everybody's ideal. Nobody wants to be by them, but I am following all of the requirements for making it nice, and it's going to be nicer than all of the units around it.
Yeah.
So
I'm not worried about that. I know we push you to the limits on the appearance of it, but I'm also going to throw in, I don't feel bad in pushing you, because I viewed storage units down south, and they're all masonry to the street front. And some were masonry all the way through also.
yes, yep.
It's not that we're asked about.
No, absolutely not, and that's just trying to get through the process.
All right, get her going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, 7E, action on a request by Kevin Wilson of Wilson's Towing LLC for a conditional use permit to operate an automotive wrecker service and an automobile painting body shop facility at 2040 South Ashland Avenue. Todd?
As you're aware, Mr. Wilson is here. We did briefly touch on it. What his request is to operate the automotive wrecker service and the automobile painting body shop at that location. Per the current zoning, it is light industry, which is I-1 on the matrix. I know that was listed on there as being 2 columns of I-1, but it is based on that zoning district. It is a conditional use. Therefore, a conditional use would be required. I believe, we met, I think, on 2 occasions in our office and had a couple of correspondence by phone and email, kind of stressed from the village standpoint, from the staff. It's not an ideal use for that location, in our opinion. It does not comply with the comprehensive plan, because it's more of a village-type center. And we do see, from a staff perspective, a transition going away from the trucking and that type of use to more of a, I guess, retail, hotel, village center, sports entertainment type district. So what's before us tonight is a request for a conditional use for that location to operate the facility. I believe right now he's got a similar facility, not the towing portion, over on Hanson Road. I believe that's a automotive shop there. So he's looking at combining it all into one and locating at this location.
Okay, questions, comments?
I heard the comment from Todd saying you're moving your whole operation into this building.
Come back to open the floor.
Open the floor, please.
Open the floor.
Second.
Move to open the floor.
Second.
Motion and a second to open the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Floor is open.
Okay, on the question of moving it all, that was definitely something that we were looking into. Now with the situation of tonight of changing that permitting, that doesn't, I don't know if that would be possible if I can't expand onto the building.
I can't understand why you would even want that building, because you have a nice facility on Hanson Road right now. That building's been there before I was even born. It was a trucking company. It was, as we all know, the ladder company. That building has not improved one iota since the beginning of time. And it's probably contaminated soil. Also, knowing the trucking industry was in there for many years. So that is my opinion on that piece of property, of why you'd want to go in there. As far as Mr. Michard, I've known him for a long time. I disagree with you on saying property owners were not advised, because I know the people at Kenworth. I don't own property, but I have a business in that area. I was always notified, even though I'm here in the village, but I was always known. I leased the building, and I still was notified. So I don't understand why you weren't notified. And I know the village does a good job on sending letters out. We had a situation of this not too long ago where I requested to expand the area in order to get something taken care of, to get more residents involved in it. So that's my 2 cents right now.
And I have been in the past at my other locations when there was been changes too. So, I mean, I don't know. But when we were just talking outside, if the zoning is changing and everybody's trying to sell their property, I mean, one of my projects with this is to clean it up. I mean, the way it sits right now, it's not a great looking piece of property. I'm going to, you know, clean that property up. It's going to look completely different. I didn't bring a lot of information here tonight because part of this wasn't even part of my plan of what happened before this, but they had said they were going to not put their, you know, faith behind the project, so I wanted to see where the, you know, the first initial stages went before we drop a bunch of blueprints on it.
Well, I just want to add one more comment that I should have did before. I'm getting up to speed. I've been gone a little bit. Adjacent to your property that you're looking at, they called me on that and said, why am I not in this entertainment district? They want to be in it.
I don't know who you're referring to.
They're not, it's not in there, but they would be willing to put their property in the entertainment district.
A couple more. Do you now own that property, all three pieces? You have purchased it?
Yes, a land contract. Yes.
Where do you have an existing business someplace?
Yes, on Hanson Road.
On Hanson Road, that's what you're referring to.
Next to Broadway Garage is car lot.
Well, our earlier conversation aside, I don't want to dwell on that, but I just don't see that what you want to do in this corner, I just don't see that as matching what the village wants to do in this whole area. It just doesn't add up at all. And it's not your fault. You got a business you want to operate, and God bless you. I hope it's successful, but I just don't see body shop and a towing business on this corner at all. It just doesn't jive with what we're trying to do with this whole area.
I would agree with that, Ken. It's kind of the gateway coming up Mike McCarthy. We're putting $3.7 million into Mike McCarthy, $93 million into an expo center in that area. And it's not a permitted use, so we have a choice in this matter. So I cannot vote for this.
Well, I'll go along with the other two of you. This property has been talked about way before he ever got interested in it.
Correct.
About a blighted area. So I don't see where, and I agree with you, it's the entrance to the new entertainment district that we're developing. Our zoning is changed because of the interest involved in this area, is the reason we're bringing it up. It's not that we're fast forwarding it. It's just like Mary said, when somebody comes in and wants to spend millions of dollars in this area, they don't want to fool with this zoning deal. We want to be ahead of the developers in order to get them interested in this property without rezoning it. And we're not particularly fond of spot zoning neither. So I'll go along with the rest of you, the other two of you, saying I'm not for this project though.
If this is denied, does he have a, will he come in front of the village board and?
Aaron?
The process, you're providing a recommendation to the village board. It would still go to a public hearing and village board action.
So he has another.
Correct. Yep. Your recommendation is to village board, and they provide final action.
Did I hear you say another public hearing?
There is a public hearing held for any kind of conditional use permit at village board.
Oh, at the village board. Okay, we open it up to them.
Correct.
You're right. Okay.
If it's denied, he still has the ability to come in front of the village board, yes?
Right, the process is the process. The process is that whether there's a recommendation of approval or denial at Plan Commission, it does go on to Village Board for the public hearing and final action.
Do you have anything you want to add, Mr. Wilson?
Just well, one, if you change the zoning to the sports complex, like you said before, people are gonna just wait for their price to come to win the lottery to sell the property. And so if the zoning gets changed and we had a conditional use permit to go into that property to do, say, towing, I'm gonna clean the property up. It's gonna look better than it does now. It's not gonna stay in its current state, which is not good.
We agree with you.
And so I wouldn't be able to expand, I would be able to operate as a towing company. And when somebody comes along with these magic numbers that everybody thinks that there's gonna be on this whole road, then we could sell like everybody else.
I just want the board to be aware, though, that the conditional use permit is not in the new zoning. It's in the current zoning of light industrial.
Right.
It's not in the new zoning. So,
So he doesn't have the ability to come in front of the board because
yes.
it's already?
Yes, he does.
He does.
He does. He still does. It's just that I just don't want you to think that he needs this conditional use because we recommended the rezoning. Because the conditional use, right now it is zoned light industrial.
Yes.
The conditional use is on that zoning, not the new zoning. It's on the current zoning.
Okay, I'll make a move to return to regular order business.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to return to the regular order of business. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll move to recommend to the village board that the request for a conditional use permit not be granted.
Second.
We
I
have-
still want to go, so
Okay.
once we have the previous item, when it was changed to the sports and entertainment, does not allow what he wants to do under a conditional use.
Correct. But neither does what the zoning that it
That
is
he was
in
under.
right now does not allow that.
At all.
With, it has to have a conditional use.
They both do, okay,
Correct.
all right. Okay,
Well, in the new zoning, he wouldn't even, it's not permitted at all.
that's
In
what I'm
the
getting
zone.
at, so if the.
Let me try to clarify this. So under the I-1 zoning as it is right now, light industrial, the proposed use is a conditional use permit. Because the application was submitted to the village prior to the rezoning action, he still has the ability to apply for the conditional use permit under the I-1 district.
Correct.
Even though it's not going to be an I-1 anymore.
Correct. It'll be a legal non-conforming use if the rezoning goes through.
Yes.
It's on the corner of the road there. If I wanted to put a gas station in there, which would seem like a really nice place to throw a gas station, because it's, there's not,
It's a terrible place for a gas station.
Would that go?
I'm not sure what a gas station under the sports entertainment district, I believe that's probably a special business zoning district, so that would not be a permitted use in that zone.
Yeah,
Just jump,
yeah.
come on.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend denial of the conditional use permit. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Expensive piece of property.
Yeah.
Okay. 7F, action on ordinance number 03-02-18, changing street name for William Charles Court to Element Way. Tony.
Okay, contained before you in this agenda item is simply an ordinance that is formally a request to change what is now William Charles Court to Element Way. The developers with what is known as the Slindy project have come up with the name of the Element for the new residential development that's going to be going on over on the end of William Charles Court. And as part of that, in discussions with staff and the request of the developer, there's an ordinance here in front of you to adopt the name change from William Charles Court to Element Way.
So this was the developer's idea of this name?
Yes.
Okay.
I hate to be picky, but I just, that is a terrible name.
Excited about it.
This was,
Oh,
this
Element
was
Way.
the third name.
What's that?
This was the third name that
Oh,
they
really?
had come up with,
How
yes.
bad were the other
I'd
two?
hate to know the first two.
So,
Ay, ay, ay.
Well, didn't your Green Bay Packaging, when we had to build that new road behind, what's the name of that trucking outfit, that repair shop? We had to build a new road to get from Spirit up to Ridge Road. Didn't they name that themselves too?
I believe so.
They did. They brought up the name.
I hate to be picky, but that to me, that just has no zip, pizzazz, or meaning to it.
I can't put a meaning to it. Help us out here, Allison.
She's not here, but,
I am.
oh, that Allison.
You may have another thought.
What's gonna speak to you? I mean, if you want a name to speak to you, I don't.
If you want to what?
He said the name doesn't speak to him. How do you determine what kind of name speaks to someone?
Good question. This certainly doesn't.
The name of their
thought you'd have a
development is
younger
called
idea.
The Element. So,
Trustee Bukowski might go along with Kosciuszko Court.
There you go.
Yeah, I agree with you.
It's pronounced
know,
Kosciuszko.
so that is why they probably want to name it Element Way, is because their development is called The Element.
This is your village center.
But
And you probably want to have a, you know, I'm big on themes, I guess, because we've renamed how many streets after legends in Green Bay, but, and in Ashwaubenon. But I think your village center maybe should reflect the names of people who have been involved in the village.
I want to move the table list for just another look.
Can we do that because of the CSM issue, Tony?
Why not?
They haven't started building yet.
Why can't we table it?
why don't you make a motion to deny it and see where it goes?
Well, it does the same thing.
Yeah, but all you're doing is asking for more time for another name.
Right, exactly. I don't want to be that
Have you
mean.
discussed themed, I mean, from a planning perspective, have you discussed a themed, idea or public placemaking for this area and how you want to theme the area? If it's your village center, you know?
There's no debate on a motion to table, please. Let's vote on the table.
There was no second, was there?
Then it dies, all right.
I'll second it.
We got a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this item. My question is, I want to know if it has any effect on the CSM.
What CSM?
Well, the parcels that are
Yeah.
in there all have to be combined.
At some point it will.
So it's
because
okay-
the CSM has been already approved, and we don't have any control over it, at least at this point.
Okay.
But, so at some point it will have to interact with the CSM, and that issue will have to be resolved.
Okay. Okay. So we
Yeah.
can table this for a month?
Well, no, I didn't say a
no,
month.
I know a month. I know you didn't say a month.
All right.
You know, what's going to happen, I mean, they're not the only developer that's going to be in that area. You know, and they're trying to name it so that they get the rights to their development.
Well,
I guess
Okay.
if I could, we did discuss potential street names for this renaming of William Charles Court. We're trying to get away from the stigma associated with the William Charles Court neighborhood. So we contemplated. I had a list actually in my own office trying to figure out what type of name would work for kind of a up and coming, urbanizing, cool area. And I'll be honest, I drew a blank. Now, Skippington Way, I believe, is taken someplace else in the county.
I was going to ask about Ken Drive or Ken Circle or something.
Those are both taken as well.
Those were gone. Okay.
Yep. In terms of the name itself, you know, I think it does lend some pizzazz to the area. Element, you think about it, and the tagline for the apartment complex is the element, live in yours. So live in your element. So kind of, again, your hip, edgy type place where you're going to live.
That's for you millennials.
Well, who do you want to live there?
Well, and that's what it's going to be.
Madam Chair, we cannot debate a motion to table.
Yes, we have a motion to table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Tabled. We're done discussing it. We have one no. Okay, we're done.
We're done.
Okay, the next meeting is on election night.
Uh-oh.
Still have it, it'll just be an A.
I will not be here.
You will not be here. Okay, we can still have the meeting if you would like, but it would be in conference room A. No? Todd, you're shaking your...
What is the date?
No.
April 6th.
April
3rd.
3rd. Okay.
That doesn't affect the special meeting next week, right?
No.
Oh.
No.
Well, it doesn't matter to me. It's be the 3rd.
I mean, I'll be here.
We got public works that night too, Madam Chair, so we'll both have to be moved
Yes.
if we do it,
Conference
which is
room
fine
A.
with me. I don't care. But it's up to you.
Okay. We'll just do it in A. I don't have a problem doing it in A.
So leave it on the 3rd?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, items for next agenda. Do we want the street name on the next agenda or no?
Sure.
That's a week.
Okay,
That's enough time.
let's put the street name on the next agenda.
Sure. Why not?
That'll give people time to think. Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?